Commander Vex Thornfield of the Galactic Defense Coalition stared at the tactical display with what could only be described as professional horror. The blue dots representing Earth's Third Fleet hung in space like sleeping predators, perfectly positioned 3 parsecs from the Hegemony border. Each dot represented enough firepower to glass a small moon, and there were 47 of them. Sir, Communications Officer Lyra Voss spoke up, her voice carrying that particular tone reserved for delivering catastrophically bad news. "We're receiving multiple priority transmissions from Hegemony High Command." Vex didn't need to guess what those transmissions contained. 3 hours ago, a Hegemony patrol squadron had made what military historians would later call the stupidest tactical decision in recorded galactic history. They had opened fire on a human cargo vessel. "Let me guess," Vex said, settling back in his command chair with the resignation of someone watching a star go supernova. "Admiral Crix wants to know why we haven't moved to intercept the human fleet." "Actually, Sir," Lyra's tentacles shifted nervously. "Admiral Crix is demanding we provide immediate military support for what he calls a proportionate response to human aggression." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Vex could practically hear his crew's collective intelligence dropping several points as they processed this information. "Proportionate response," Vex repeated slowly, as if tasting each word for poison. "To human aggression." "Yes, sir, sir." Vex turned to his tactical officer, a grizzled Centaurian named Marcus Voidwalker, who had survived more battles than most species had names for. "Marcus, refresh my memory. What exactly did this human cargo vessel do to provoke our Hegemony friends?" Marcus consulted his display, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "According to the incident report, sir, the human vessel was carrying medical supplies to the Outer Rim colonies. It responded to Hegemony hails with what the patrol commander described as insufficiently respectful language." "Insufficiently respectful," Vex nodded sagely. "And the exact nature of this disrespect?" "The human captain told them, and I quote, 'We're carrying medicine to sick kids, so either help or get out of our way.'" Vex felt a familiar tightness in his primary stomach. In his 23 years of military service, he had learned exactly one universal truth. When humans used the word kids in reference to their young, things were about to get very, very ugly for everyone involved. And then? Patrol Commander Zale interpreted this as a hostile act and ordered weapons fire. The bridge crew exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their collective assessment of Patrol Commander Zale's intelligence, ancestry, and probable life expectancy. "I see," Vex said calmly. "And the human vessel's response to being fired upon while carrying medical supplies to children?" "They transmitted a distress signal and retreated to hyperspace," Marcus reported. "No return fire, no aggressive maneuvers. Textbook non-combatant behavior." "Of course they did," Vex muttered, "because humans are absolutely terrifying when they're being reasonable." Lieutenant Dana Flax, the ship's xenopsychology specialist, leaned forward from her station. "Sir, if I may, the human distress signal was broadcast on standard Coalition emergency frequencies. Given human social psychology, particularly their protective instincts regarding their offspring, the Third Fleet's response was entirely predictable." "Predictable," Vex echoed. "Dana, in your professional opinion, what exactly are we looking at here?" Dana consulted her notes, though Vex suspected she knew the answer by heart. "Sir, based on historical precedent, when humans perceive a threat to their children, their response follows a predictable pattern. First, they attempt diplomatic resolution. If that fails, they escalate to economic pressure. If that fails, they send a fleet," Vex finished. "They send every fleet they have," Dana corrected. "The Third Fleet arriving first simply means they were closest. Long-range sensors are already detecting hyperspace signatures consistent with human dreadnoughts moving this direction from at least 6 different sectors." The tactical display updated, showing new contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of sensor range. More blue dots, each one representing enough concentrated violence to make entire civilizations reconsider their life choices. Sir, Lyra announced, "We're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. It's addressed to you personally." Vex straightened in his chair. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, revealing the face of Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's Third Fleet. Vex had met her twice before at diplomatic functions, and both times had come away with the distinct impression that she was the sort of person who could kill you with a soup spoon while discussing the weather. "Commander Thornfield," Admiral Chen's voice carried across the bridge with the warmth of liquid nitrogen, "I trust you're having a pleasant day." "Admiral Chen," Vex replied carefully, "always a pleasure. I understand there's been an incident involving one of your cargo vessels." "An incident?" Admiral Chen repeated, her smile holding all the warmth of a plasma conduit breach. "Is that what we're calling it when armed military vessels open fire on medical transports carrying children's medicine?" Vex felt his secondary heart skip a beat. "Admiral, I want you to know that the Coalition had absolutely no involvement in this incident. Our position on attacks against non-combatant vessels, particularly medical transports, is unambiguous." "I appreciate that," Commander Admiral Chen said, and for a moment her expression softened slightly. "The Coalition has always been honorable in our dealings. It's why I'm speaking with you instead of simply proceeding with standard protocols." "Standard protocols?" Vex suppressed a shudder. Human standard protocols for this sort of situation typically involved making examples that other species remembered for generations. "Admiral," Vex said carefully, "perhaps we could discuss a diplomatic solution. I'm certain the Hegemony leadership would be willing to make reparations." "Reparations?" Admiral Chen nodded thoughtfully. "An interesting concept. Tell me, Commander, what do you suppose appropriate reparations would be for firing on a medical transport carrying supplies for sick children?" This was a trap. Vex could feel it closing around him like a gravity well. That would depend on the specific terms both parties found acceptable." "Both parties?" Admiral Chen's smile returned, sharper than before. "How diplomatic of you. Unfortunately, Commander, the Hegemony had their chance for diplomacy. That was before they opened fire on the medical transport." The tactical display chimed softly, indicating new contacts, or human ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The blue dots were multiplying like a virus. "Admiral," Vex tried again, "surely there's a peaceful resolution to this situation." "Oh, there is," Admiral Chen assured him. "The Hegemony can surrender the personnel responsible for ordering the attack on our medical transport. They can provide full reparations to the families affected by the delayed medical supplies. And they can guarantee in writing that such an incident will never occur again. And if they refuse?" Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. "Then we'll implement standard protocols." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Sir," Marcus reported quietly, "I'm reading 17 more human vessels dropping out of hyperspace, including 2 Dreadnought-class ships." "Of course there are," Vex said wearily. "Lyra, get me Admiral Crix." The screen flickered again, this time revealing the bloated form of Admiral Crix, his ceremonial armor glittering with medals that Vex was fairly certain were mostly purchased rather than earned. "Thornfield." Crix boomed, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never personally experienced the business end of human military doctrine. "What's the status of the human fleet? When can we expect Coalition support for our defensive operations?" "Admiral Crix," Vex said slowly, "I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The humans are not here for a military engagement. They're here for justice." "Justice?" Crix laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "They're here because they're aggressive expansionists who can't tolerate other species asserting their legitimate territorial rights." Vex closed his eyes and counted to 10 in 3 different languages. "Admiral, they're here because you fired on a medical transport carrying supplies for children. A transport that refused to submit to proper inspection protocols. A transport that told you they were carrying medicine to sick kids and asked you to either help or get out of the way, Vex corrected. Which, according to every civilized code of military conduct in the galaxy, is exactly what they should have done. Crix's face darkened. Are you suggesting that the Hegemony acted improperly? I'm suggesting that you attacked a medical transport and now there are 19 human warships sitting 3 parsecs from your border with more arriving every hour, Vex snapped. What I think about your actions is irrelevant. What matters is what they think. Bah. Crix waved a dismissive hand. Humans are all bluster and propaganda. They won't dare attack a sovereign hegemony force. Vex felt something inside him break. 23 years of diplomatic protocol, military courtesy, and professional restraint crumbled like a house of cards in a hurricane. Admiral, he said with the kind of calm that preceded violent storms, has anyone in your command structure ever actually studied human military history? Of course we have. They're a young species with limited combat experience. Limited combat experience, Vex repeated flatly. Admiral, humans have been in continuous warfare for their entire recorded history. They fought wars over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and trade routes. They've fought wars over insults. They've fought wars over soccer games. Your point. My point. Vex continued, his voice rising, is that they've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other, and when they finally made it to space, they brought all that experience with them. Do you know what they call the period in their history when they weren't actively fighting major wars? Crix shook his head. They don't have a word for it because it's never happened. Vex shouted. Chanted. And now you've given them a reason to fight that unites every human faction, every political party, every military branch, and every civilian population center in their entire species. Which is? You threatened their children, Vex said quietly. You fired on a ship carrying medicine to sick human children. Do you have any idea what you've done? For the first time since the conversation began, Crix looked uncertain. It was a single cargo vessel. It was a ship full of medicine for sick children, Vex repeated. And every human in their space now knows that the Hegemony considers their children acceptable targets. The tactical display chimed again. More blue dots. Sir, Marcus reported, his voice carefully neutral, we now have 26 human vessels on sensors. I'm also detecting hyperspace signatures consistent with at least 12 more ships inbound. Vex turned back to the screen. Admiral Crix, I strongly recommend you consider Admiral Chen's terms. Never, Crix declared. The Hegemony does not negotiate with terrorists. They're not terrorists, Vex said wearily. They're parents. Very angry parents with a lot of really big guns. The transmission ended with Crix's continued declarations of Hegemony superiority and human cowardice. Sir, Dana spoke up hesitantly. What are our orders? Vex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Good people, all of them. They'd followed him through 3 wars and countless diplomatic crises. They deserved better than to die because some bloated bureaucrat couldn't tell the difference between a medical transport and a military threat. Our orders, Vex said finally, are to observe and report. We are not, under any circumstances, to interfere with human operations. But Sir, Lyra protested, Admiral Crix expects coalition support. Admiral Crix, Vex replied, can expect whatever he wants. I'm not getting my crew killed because he decided to shoot at a ship full of children's medicine. The bridge fell silent again as the crew absorbed this. In the distance, more blue dots appeared on the tactical display. How many ships do the humans have? Someone asked quietly. Vex consulted his database. According to the latest intelligence reports, Earth maintains approximately 3,000 frontline warships across all fleets. And how many do you think they'll send here? Vex watched the tactical display as more and more blue dots appeared at the edge of sensor range. Each one represented a ship full of humans who had learned that someone had threatened their children. All of them, he said quietly. 6 hours later, Commander Vex Thornfield stood on his bridge watching what could only be described as the most polite military buildup in galactic history. The human fleet had grown to 43 vessels, arranged in perfect formation with spacing that would make a parade drill instructor weep with joy. They hadn't fired a single shot, hadn't even powered their weapons systems beyond standby mode. It was absolutely terrifying. Sir, Lieutenant Flax reported from her xenopsychology station, "I'm monitoring Hegemony communications channels. Their rhetoric is escalating." "Define escalating," Vex said, though he suspected he already knew. "Admiral Crix has declared the human fleet presence an act of war and is demanding immediate military action from all Hegemony allies," Dana replied. "He's also referring to humans as barbaric warmongers and a threat to civilized space." Marcus Voidwalker looked up from his tactical display. "Sir, the irony levels are approaching critical mass. Should I sound general quarters?" "Belay that," Vex said dryly. "We're not at war with basic logic, Marcus, even if our neighbors seem to be." The main screen flickered as another transmission came through. This time it was Captain Rico Martinez from the human destroyer Relentless Mercy, a ship name that Vex found disturbingly appropriate for the current situation. "Commander Thornfield," Captain Martinez said with a pleasant smile that didn't reach his eyes, "I hope we're not causing any inconvenience with our presence." "Not at all," Captain Vex replied carefully, "just observing the situation as it develops." "We appreciate your patience," Martinez continued. "I wanted to inform you that we'll be conducting some routine training exercises in this sector. Nothing too elaborate, just standard fleet maneuvers and communication drills." On the tactical display, the human ships began moving with mechanical precision. What Martinez was calling routine training exercises looked suspiciously like the most advanced military formation Vex had ever witnessed outside of a war college simulation. "Of course, Captain," Vex said. "We'll make sure to stay clear of your exercise area." "Much obliged, Commander. Oh, and we've received word that several more task forces will be joining us for these exercises. Apparently someone back home thought it would be good training for our newer captains." More blue dots appeared on the sensors. "Lots more." "I see," Vex managed. "How many task forces should we expect?" Martinez consulted something off-screen. "Let's see, looks like we'll have representatives from the 2nd, 4th, 7th and 9th fleets joining us. Plus some independent squadrons. Should be quite educational." The transmission ended, leaving Vex staring at a tactical display that now showed 67 human warships in perfect formation. "Sir," Communications Officer Voss announced, "we're receiving another priority transmission from Admiral Crix." "Of course we are," Vex sighed. "Put him through." Admiral Crix appeared on screen, his face purple with rage and what Vex suspected was a dangerous amount of stimulants. "Thornfield, the humans have brought an invasion fleet to our borders. This is an act of war that demands immediate coalition response." "Admiral," Vex said patiently, "they're conducting training exercises in neutral space. They have every right to be there." "Training exercises," Crix sputtered. "With 67 warships." 69, Marcus corrected helpfully. 2 more just dropped out of hyperspace. Crix's face somehow managed to turn a deeper shade of purple. "This is intolerable. I demand coalition military support for a preemptive strike." Every person on the bridge turned to stare at their commander. In the background, Vex could hear someone whisper, "Did he just say preemptive strike?" in the tone usually reserved for natural disasters. "Admiral Crix," Vex said very slowly, "let me make sure I understand your position. You want coalition support for a preemptive military attack on human forces who are currently conducting legal training exercises in neutral space." "Exactly. After you fired on one of their medical transports." "That's irrelevant. While it was carrying medicine for children." "Stop saying that." Vex felt his diplomatic restraint finally snap like an overstressed bulkhead. "Admiral, are you completely insane?" The bridge fell silent. In 23 years of military service, Vex had never directly insulted a superior officer. It felt surprisingly liberating. "How dare you?" Crix roared. "How dare I?" Vex shot back. "Admiral, you attacked a medical transport, ignored every diplomatic overture, refused reasonable reparations, and now you want to start a shooting war with the most militarily experienced species in known space. The only question is whether you're clinically insane or just criminally stupid. I'll have you court-martialed for this." "Good luck with that," Vex replied, "assuming any of us survive what you're planning to do." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Sir," Lyra said hesitantly, "that was probably career suicide," Vex finished. "But I feel better about it than I have in years." Lieutenant Flax looked up from her console. "Sir, I'm reading massive hyperspace signatures, multiple fleets dropping out of FTL." The tactical display updated, showing what appeared to be half the human navy materializing in perfect formation. The blue dots now covered 3 entire sectors of the display. "How many?" Vex asked. 137 vessels and climbing, Marcus reported, including 6 dreadnoughts, 12 battleships, and what appears to be a mobile command platform the size of a small moon. "That would be the Terra Nova," Dana said, consulting her database, flagship of the human combined fleet. "If that ship is here, then Admiral Elena Rodriguez is in command of this operation." Vex had heard of Admiral Rodriguez. Everyone in military intelligence had heard of Admiral Rodriguez. She was the human who had ended the regional conflict by parking her fleet in orbit around the enemy homeworld and politely asking if they'd like to surrender before lunch or after. "Sir," Lyra announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the Terra Nova. It's addressed to all coalition vessels in the area." "Put it through." The screen filled with the image of Admiral Elena Rodriguez, a woman who somehow managed to look both grandmotherly and absolutely lethal at the same time. She was sitting in what appeared to be a comfortable chair, holding a cup of tea. "Greetings, coalition vessels," Admiral Rodriguez said pleasantly. "I hope everyone is having a lovely day. I wanted to personally apologize for any inconvenience our training exercises might be causing. I know it's unusual to have so many ships in one area, but we're testing some new fleet coordination protocols." She paused to sip her tea. "I also wanted to address any concerns about our presence here. I want to assure everyone that we have no hostile intentions toward any coalition members or neutral parties. We're simply here to resolve a small misunderstanding involving one of our medical transports." Another sip of tea. "Now, I've been trying to reach Admiral Crix of the Hegemony Navy to discuss this matter like civilized beings, but he seems to be unavailable. If any coalition personnel could relay a message to him, I would be most grateful." She set down her teacup and folded her hands in her lap. "The message is quite simple. We would like him to surrender the officers responsible for firing on our medical transport, provide reparations for the delayed medical supplies, and guarantee in writing that such incidents will not occur again. These terms are non-negotiable." Her pleasant smile never wavered. "If Admiral Crix would prefer to discuss alternative arrangements, he's welcome to do so. However, I should mention that my fleet includes medical officers, engineers, logistical specialists, and other personnel who are quite eager to examine Hegemony facilities up close, for professional reasons. You understand." The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop another 10 degrees. "I'll be available for discussions for the next 6 hours. After that, I'm afraid we'll have to proceed with standard protocols. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day." The transmission ended. "Sir," Marcus said into the silence, "did she just threaten to invade the entire Hegemony while drinking tea?" "I believe she did," Vex replied, and somehow made it sound like a social invitation. The tactical display chimed as more ships appeared. The human fleet now numbered over 200 vessels. "Sir," Dana reported, "I'm detecting movement in the Hegemony fleet. It looks like they're preparing for combat operations." Vex closed his eyes. Of course they are. 3 hours later, Admiral Krix made his final mistake. Faced with what he perceived as an intolerable threat to hegemony sovereignty, he ordered his battle fleet to advance on the human positions. 47 hegemony vessels, the pride of their military, moving in perfect attack formation toward 236 human warships. The result was not a battle. Battles implied some degree of uncertainty about the outcome. The human fleet didn't even power their main weapons. Instead, they used what Admiral Rodriguez later described as minimum necessary force to disable the attacking vessels. Point defense systems designed to intercept missiles and fighters proved remarkably effective at surgically removing weapons arrays, engines, and communication equipment from ships whose designers had never considered such precise applications of military technology. In exactly 17 minutes and 43 seconds, the entire hegemony battle fleet was rendered completely helpless without a single casualty on either side. "Sir," Marcus reported, his voice filled with something approaching awe, "the human fleet is requesting permission to conduct search and rescue operations on the disabled hegemony vessels." "Of course they are," Vex said weakly. Admiral Rodriguez appeared on screen again, still looking pleasant and grandmotherly. "Commander Thornfield," she said warmly, "I wanted to thank you for your restraint during this unfortunate incident. The Coalition's commitment to peaceful resolution is appreciated." "Admiral," Vex managed, "what happens now?" "Now we implement the terms I outlined earlier," Rodriguez replied. "The officers responsible for attacking our medical transport will be surrendered for trial. Reparations will be paid, and the hegemony will provide written guarantees that such incidents will not occur again." "And if they refuse?" Admiral Rodriguez's smile didn't change, but somehow became infinitely more terrifying. "Then we'll continue our training exercises. I understand the hegemony has several lovely worlds that would be perfect for practicing our new urban pacification techniques." The transmission ended. 2 hours later, Admiral Krix personally surrendered the officers responsible for the attack on the medical transport. The Hegemony Senate voted unanimously to accept all human demands and issued a formal apology that was broadcast across known space. The human fleet departed as efficiently as it had arrived, leaving behind only a small monitoring station and a very clear message: medical transports carrying supplies for children were not to be interfered with under any circumstances. Commander Vex Thornfield spent the rest of his career telling young officers about the day he watched humanity demonstrate the difference between having the ability to destroy your enemies and having the wisdom to make them surrender instead. The story became required reading at every military academy in Coalition space, usually filed under "Why Threatening Human Children is a Career-Limiting Decision." Admiral Krix retired to a small agricultural world where he spent his remaining years growing vegetables and never, ever discussing military strategy. And somewhere in human space, a medical transport completed its delivery of children's medicine, 3 days late but otherwise unharmed. The universe remembered the lesson.